Minasan konnichiwa! Today on Japan in Suitcase, I want to talk to you about Japanese art. But wait, I know this can be a bit of a boring topic for some people because people think of art and art history. There can be a lot of dates and just terminology that we might not understand. But I'm going to try to give you a brief rundown of different types of Japanese art because I think this is a really interesting topic and there's a lot of symbolism and culture in Japanese art that I think is worth to explore. Most of us know that Japan's predominant religion is Shintoism, and it has even made its way into Japanese art. So in Shintoism, they believe that they are deities or kami that live in nature, such as in trees, rocks, mountains, and rivers. This is why when you look at Japanese art, you will mostly see nature scenes, and it is a way of depicting the world in which the kami or the deities live in. Japan itself has had a really complicated relationship with nature. On one end, if you go to Japan or see photos, you will see that nature there is really beautiful. It's so interesting to look at. But at the same time, we know that Japan suffers from a lot of natural disasters, such as tsunamis, typhoons, and volcanoes. For example, there's this famous Japanese artwork called The Wave, and when you look at it, it looks really cool and really interesting. But at the same time, this painting shows you how destructive nature can be, especially since waves this big are usually associated with tsunamis. Mount Fuji is also a popular subject in Japanese art, and when you look at it, it is this really big mountain, but at the same time, it is also an active volcano that is still very dangerous and deadly. So at least what I've noticed in Japanese art is that they capture the beauty of nature, but also sometimes the dangerous parts of nature as well. But they make it coincide together so well that it kind of confuses me sometimes. So when it comes to Japanese art style, they definitely have their own called Yamatoe, and it was used to kind of replace some of the Chinese influence in Japanese art. The Yamatoe paintings were mostly of stylized people and nature and used really bright colors. Japan's traditional or classical art style began to change during the Meiji Restoration, when Japan began to more modernize and accept more Western ideas into their society, and art kind of had a mix between Western and Japanese. Now, contemporary Japanese art is going pretty similar to the US, where artists are trying to experiment with different styles and mediums. Now we see experimentation in manga, fashion, digital art, photography, sculptures, and artists are trying to break the boundaries of traditional art that they always knew. For example, there is an artist called Takahiro Iwasaki that takes just everyday objects and carves them into small and cute miniature cities. There's also an artist, Takahashi Murakami, that takes the traditional art style and also pop cultures and mashes them together to make these unforgettable sculptures. Take the time to check out traditional art and also contemporary art of Japan. The contrast is really big, but it's really fun to look through. Let's go on to tea ceremonies. I know that in the US or in some Western countries, it may be weird to say that drinking tea is a type of art, but in Japan, they genuinely have made it a type of art form. The Japanese tea ceremony, or called cha-no-yu in Japanese, is a tradition that is still alive to this very day. So this kind of ceremony holds a lot of meaning. It is meant to create a very calm and peaceful and aesthetic experience for the people that partake in it. For example, the Japanese daimyo, they would hold these tea ceremonies as a way to create a very harmonious and peaceful space for negotiations. Tea ceremonies are still used in Japan. You can go to one as a tourist, or even businesses use them as a way to network or to reinforce hierarchies. Another art style in Japan is called Ikebana, or the Japanese way of arranging flowers. Now, this is way more than just putting flowers in a vase and calling it a day. It is a strategic placement of flowers in order to bring out their best qualities. This type of art style has some Shinto and Buddhist influences because people would often leave flowers as an offering to shrines, and then it slowly turned into a type of art form. There are many flowers that are named in Japan, and they all have their different meanings. So the meanings of the flowers are also a part of the flower arrangements. sometimes the meaning and the context is really specific. For example, if it is a windy season in Japan, such as in March, the branches of the flowers would be a bit curved to show the wind. Or the flowers sometimes may be white to represent a homecoming. The Ikebana art style has even become somewhat popular in the United States, so I definitely urge you to look it up online and see what you can find out about Ikebana and its philosophy, because it's just so interesting to look at how people view flowers and the true meaning behind flowers. This was a bit of a brief rundown on different types of Japanese art forms. I thought this would be a pretty interesting video to make because I know here in the West, talking about tea and even flowers is not really considered a type of art style, but when it comes to Japan, it's a type of philosophy that is ingrained in their culture. As always, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you learned something new and I will see y'all next week. Bye!